Ah, look who just got validation from the most unexpected source. Ah, welcome back, you beautiful, misunderstood, quietly dangerous masterpiece. I've been waiting to tell you this, and trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word of what just happened, because something shifted in the last 48 hours. Something your enemies thought would never, ever happen in their wildest nightmares. Someone they respect, someone they fear, someone they can't ignore, just looked at your entire story, examined every detail they tried to bury, and said the words that are now echoing through every group chat, every whispered conversation, every panicked phone call. They were right all along. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. Let it marinate in your soul, because while you were rebuilding in silence, while you were healing without their permission, while you were transforming in the shadows without posting a single explanation, someone at the top, someone with weight, someone whose opinion actually matters to these cowards, just confirmed what you've known the entire time. They looked at the evidence, examined the timeline, studied the patterns, and came to one unavoidable, undeniable, panic-inducing conclusion. You were telling the truth, and everyone who doubted you, everyone who mocked you, everyone who chose their side over yours just bet on the wrong story, backed the wrong narrative, and now they're scrambling like rats on a sinking ship trying to figure out how to save face. Do you understand what this means? Do you grasp the magnitude of what just happened in their world? This isn't just validation. This isn't just vindication. This is a complete structural collapse of everything they built on your silence. Because they didn't just doubt you, they weaponized that doubt. They turned it into a campaign. They made your name synonymous with being wrong, being dramatic, being unstable, being too much. And now a high-level player, someone they fear, someone they quote, someone they desperately want approval from, just looked at the entire situation and essentially said, "You people are fools." And the panic, the panic that's spreading through their ranks right now is the most beautiful thing you'll never see directly. But you'll feel it, you'll sense it, you'll watch it unfold in real time. They thought they buried you 6 feet under their narrative, didn't they? They thought the story was over, case closed, verdict delivered, your reputation destroyed beyond repair. They sat back in their comfortable chairs, sipping their drinks, laughing at your expense, convinced they'd gotten away with the greatest heist in social warfare, stealing your truth and replacing it with their fiction. But here's what they forgot. Here's the fatal flaw in their entire operation. Truth doesn't stay buried forever. It doesn't rot in the ground like they hoped it would. It doesn't fade away just because they stopped talking about it. Truth is patient. Truth is relentless. Truth waits in the darkness until the perfect moment. And then it rises with receipts, with witnesses, with confirmations they never saw coming. And that moment is right now, happening in real time while you're watching this. Because this high-level player, this person they can't dismiss, can't silence, can't gaslight, just pulled the pin on a grenade they didn't even know was in the room. They started asking questions, real questions, uncomfortable questions, the kind that make liars sweat and cowards stutter. Wait, why did that happen exactly? Hold on. That timeline doesn't make sense. Interesting. Because that's not what I heard from other sources. So you're telling me they just randomly did all that for no reason. Yeah, that doesn't add up. And with every question, with every raised eyebrow, with every moment of visible doubt on this person's face, your enemies felt their foundation cracking beneath their feet. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening behind closed doors right now. Behind the screens, in the private messages you'll never see. They're panicking. Actually panicking. Not the fake panic, not the performative stress, but genuine terror, because their entire social structure was built on you being wrong. Think about it. Their friendships, their alliances, their moral high ground, their ability to sleep at night without drowning in guilt, all of it depended on the story that you were the problem. And now someone they can't manipulate, can't control, can't sweet talk, just confirmed that story was a lie from the beginning. That they weren't the heroes in this narrative, that they weren't the victims, that they weren't the ones who made the hard but necessary choice. The messages flying back and forth right now, I wish you could see them. Did you see what they said? We need to get ahead of this. No, we can't ignore it. This person has too much influence. Maybe we should reach out. No, that'll make us look guilty. What if they dig deeper? What if they find out about? We need damage control right now. And here's the beautiful part. Here's the poetry in this entire situation. There is no damage control for the truth. You can't spin it. You can't reframe it. You can't convince someone who's already seen through the smoke and mirrors. This high-level player didn't just question the narrative. They dismantled it piece by piece, held it up to the light, examined every angle, and found it wanting, found it hollow, found it suspiciously convenient for everyone except you. Now, let's talk about why this particular confirmation matters more than anything else that's happened since this entire situation began. See, when you defended yourself, they said you were biased. When you told your side, they said you were emotional. When you presented evidence, they said you were manipulative. But when a high-level player, someone with no skin in the game, someone with nothing to gain, someone who could just as easily have stayed silent, comes forward and says, "Hold up, something's not right here." That's different. That carries weight. That changes the entire dynamic. That makes people who were comfortable in their denial start questioning everything they thought they knew. This person isn't defending you because they love you. They're defending truth because they recognize it when they see it. And your enemies. They know this. They know that this changes everything. That this isn't just another voice in the crowd. That this is the voice that matters to the people who matter. They've spent months, maybe years, building a consensus around their version of events, convincing everyone in their circle that they were right, that you were wrong, that they had no choice but to do what they did. And in one conversation, in one moment of clarity, in one high-level player's refusal to accept their narrative at face value, that entire consensus shattered like glass hitting concrete. The emperor has no clothes. The story has no substance. And now everyone who backed it is standing there exposed, vulnerable, and desperate to avoid being associated with the lie. Here's what they're realizing right now in their private panic sessions. They can't attack this person. They can't discredit them. Can't call them biased. Can't say they don't know what they're talking about. Because this is someone they've spent years respecting, praising, following, agreeing with on every other topic. So when this person turns around and questions their judgment on this one specific situation, They have exactly two options: admit they might have been wrong, or try to convince this high-level player that they're wrong. Which, good luck with that. And both options terrify them because both options require them to face something they've been running from since day one: accountability. Let me tell you what's happening in their minds right now as they scramble to figure out their next move. They're running through scenarios like a computer, processing every possible outcome, every potential consequence. If we double down and defend our position, we look defensive and guilty. If we stay silent, it looks like we're hiding something. If we reach out to this high-level player to explain our side, we might dig ourselves deeper. If we try to discredit them, everyone will turn on us. If we admit we might have been wrong, we lose everything we built on being right. See the trap. See how truth creates a maze with no exit for liars. Every direction they turn leads to exposure. Every path they take ends in revelation. Every move they make brings them closer to the moment they've been desperately avoiding. And some of them, the smart ones, the ones with even a shred of self-awareness left, they're already in damage control mode. They're reaching out through back channels, sending mutual friends as messengers, crafting carefully worded apologies that somehow manage to avoid actually apologizing, testing the waters to see if there's any possible way to salvage their reputation before this gets worse. I've been thinking about everything that happened. Maybe I didn't have the full story. I might have reacted too quickly. Is there any way we can talk about this? And it's pathetic. Watching people who had all the power, all the control, all the confidence suddenly become small and desperate when the truth finally catches up to them. But here's the thing they don't understand. Here's what they're completely missing in their panic. This isn't about them anymore. This isn't about their redemption arc. This isn't about them finding a way to make themselves feel better about what they did. Because while they were living their comfortable lives, while they were sleeping soundly in their self-justified beds, while they were moving on with their lives unburdened by guilt or shame, you were doing the actual work. You were processing the betrayal, healing from the wounds they inflicted, rebuilding yourself from the ashes they left behind, transforming into something they no longer recognize. And now they want to come back. Now they want to acknowledge they might have been hasty. Now they want consideration they never gave you. The audacity, the sheer audacity of thinking they can just show up after a high-level player confirms your story and expect you to welcome them back with open arms. They had 1,000 opportunities to do the right thing. 1,000 moments where they could have paused, reconsidered, examined the evidence without bias, given you the benefit of the doubt. But they didn't. Because it was easier to believe the lie, easier to side with the majority, easier to sacrifice you than to risk their own social standing. And now that someone they respect has made it socially acceptable to question the narrative, now they want to act like they always had doubts, like they were always on the fence, like they never really fully committed to destroying your reputation. But you remember, don't you? You remember every name that went silent, every face that looked away, every person who chose their comfort over your truth. You remember the nights you spent replaying conversations, wondering if you were crazy, questioning your own memory, doubting your own perception because they were so confident, so united, so absolutely certain that you were wrong. And now this high-level player, someone who wasn't there, someone who has no emotional investment, someone who simply looked at the facts with clear eyes, just confirmed what you knew in your bones the entire time. You weren't crazy, you weren't dramatic, you weren't wrong. They were, and they knew it, and they chose to lie anyway. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Here's where the psychology of this situation becomes absolutely fascinating. This high-level player isn't just confirming your story. They're implicitly calling out everyone who denied it. Because when someone credible says, "This doesn't make sense," what they're really saying is, "Why did all of you accept this without question?" And that question, that simple question hanging in the air like a storm cloud, is now forcing everyone who took their side to examine their own judgment, their own critical thinking, their own willingness to participate in a coordinated campaign against someone who might have been telling the truth. And that examination, that moment of forced self-reflection, is uncomfortable, is painful, is something most of them will do anything to avoid. So they're doing what cowards always do when confronted with their own complicity in someone else's pain. They're making excuses. We didn't know the full story. We were just going off what we heard. They seemed so convincing. How were we supposed to know? We trusted the wrong people. And maybe some of that is true. Maybe some of them genuinely didn't know they were participating in a character assassination. But here's what they're not saying. Here's what they're carefully avoiding. They didn't try to know. They didn't ask questions. They didn't demand evidence. They didn't give you a chance to defend yourself before they chose their side. They made a choice, maybe a lazy choice, maybe an easier choice, but a choice nonetheless. And now they're learning that choices have consequences. This high-level player's confirmation isn't just validating you. It's creating a ripple effect through your entire former social circle. People who were comfortable in their judgments are now uncomfortable. People who were confident are now questioning. People who dismissed you are now wondering if they dismissed too quickly. And this discomfort, this cognitive dissonance they're experiencing, it's forcing them to confront a possibility they've been suppressing for months or years. What if they were wrong? What if they hurt an innocent person? What if they were the villains in this story all along? And for some of them, that possibility is too heavy to carry, too painful to accept, too damaging to their self-image as good people who make good decisions. So watch what happens next. Watch the patterns unfold in exactly the way I'm about to describe. Some of them will double down, will insist even harder that they were right, will attack this high-level player's credibility, will create new narratives to explain away the inconsistencies. These are the ones too proud to admit error, too invested in being right, too fragile to handle the weight of their own cruelty. Others will go silent, will remove themselves from the conversation, will pretend they were never really that involved anyway, will quietly distance themselves from the people they once stood beside. These are the cowards, the ones who were only there because it was safe, because everyone else was there, because there was no social cost to joining the mob. But then there's a third group, and this is the group you need to watch most carefully. These are the ones who will try to rewrite history, who will claim they always had doubts, who will say they tried to defend you but were shut down, who will position themselves as secret allies who were just waiting for the right moment to speak up. And they'll come to you with apologies that sound sincere but feel hollow, with explanations that make logical sense but ring emotionally false, with requests for forgiveness that are really requests for their own absolution. And you need to understand something crucial about this group. They're not sorry they hurt you. They're sorry they got caught being wrong. Because if this high-level player had never spoken up, if the truth had stayed buried, if their narrative had remained unchallenged, these people would still be sleeping soundly at night. They wouldn't lose a single moment of sleep over what they did to you. Wouldn't question their choices. Wouldn't examine their role in your pain. But now that someone they respect has made it uncomfortable to maintain the lie, now that there's a social cost to being on the wrong side, suddenly they have concerns. Suddenly they have regrets. Suddenly they remember details that might cast doubt on the story they've been telling. Convenient, isn't it? How conscience awakens when reputation is at stake. So here's my advice. Here's what you need to understand as this situation continues to unfold. Not everyone who comes back deserves to come back. Not every apology needs to be accepted. Not every relationship needs to be restored just because someone finally admitted they might have been wrong. You don't owe forgiveness to people who only found their conscience after someone else made it safe. You don't owe reconciliation to people who only questioned the narrative after a high-level player did it first. You don't owe anything to anyone who wasn't willing to stand beside you when it cost them something. Your healing, your peace, your boundaries, they're not negotiable just because the social winds have shifted in your favor. And let me tell you what's really happening beneath the surface of all this panic, all this scrambling, all this sudden reconsideration. They're not afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of being exposed as the kind of people who would destroy someone without evidence. They're not afraid of hurting you. They already did that and slept fine. They're afraid of everyone knowing they're capable of such casual cruelty. They're not afraid of the truth. They're afraid of what the truth reveals about their character, their judgment, their willingness to participate in mob justice as long as they're on the winning side. This high-level player didn't just confirm your story. They held up a mirror to everyone who denied it, and most of them hate what they're seeing in that reflection. Look who's still standing. Look who's still breathing after the longest psychological warfare campaign in modern history. 5 years, 1,825 days, 43,800 hours of letting them believe they won, letting them celebrate, letting them toast to your downfall, while you sat in the shadows, sharpening every single blade they ever tried to use against you. Welcome back, you beautiful architect of revenge. Welcome back, you patient masterminds who understood something they never could. That sometimes the most powerful move in the game is letting your opponent think there's no game at all. You didn't lose for 5 years. You invested. You didn't fail for 5 years. You studied. You didn't disappear for 5 years. You became something they have no defense against, no explanation for, no strategy to counter. And now they're starting to feel it. Aren't they? That subtle shift in the air when you walk into a room. That uncomfortable silence when your name comes up in conversation. That nervous laughter when someone asks what you've been up to, because how do they explain what they're witnessing? How do they put into words that the person they buried 5 years ago just walked back in wearing their funeral as a crown? They can't. They won't. They'll just watch. And you magnificent anomaly, you're going to let them. Because this wasn't about proving them wrong. This was about letting them prove themselves exactly who they always were, while you became someone they could never predict, never contain, never understand. 5 years ago, they thought they'd deleted you from the narrative. They thought they wrote you out of the story, but what they didn't realize is that you weren't a chapter in their book. You were writing an entirely different novel, and they were just extras in your origin story. Let's talk about what really happened during those 5 years, shall we? Because the version they tell themselves, the one where they won, where they moved on, where they forgot about you, that's the fairy tale they needed to sleep at night. But you and I both know the truth. They never stopped watching. They never stopped checking. They never stopped wondering what you were doing in that silence, in that absence, in that deliberate void you created. Every 6 months, someone would casually bring up your name just to see if anyone had intel. Every birthday that passed, someone would check if you posted anything. Every major life event in their circle, someone would pause and think, I wonder if they know about this. I wonder if they care. They told themselves they were over it, that they'd moved on, that you were irrelevant. But irrelevant people don't occupy mental real estate for half a decade. Irrelevant people don't get brought up in therapy sessions 5 years later. You know what you did during those 5 years? You became fluent in every language they used to manipulate you. You learned every pattern they ran, every tactic they employed, every emotional game they played. You didn't just heal from what they did, you studied it like a doctoral thesis. You broke down every betrayal into data point. You analyzed every lie until you could see the truth 3 sentences before they even spoke it. You transformed every wound into a lesson, every scar into a shield, every moment of pain into a weapon they'll never see coming. Because it doesn't look like rage, it looks like peace. It looks like indifference. It looks like you moved on. But you didn't move on. You moved up. You moved beyond. You moved into a frequency they can't even tune into anymore. And that's what's driving them insane. Not that you're angry, not that you're vengeful, but that you're thriving in a way that makes their victory look like the participation trophy it always was. Here's what they'll never admit out loud. They needed you to stay broken. They needed you to stay bitter. to stay stuck, to stay obsessed with what they did. Because as long as you were in pain, their narrative worked. As long as you were suffering, they could point to you as evidence that they made the right choice, that cutting you off was justified, that whatever they did was necessary. But the moment you started healing, the moment you started growing, the moment you started becoming this untouchable force of nature, their entire story fell apart. Suddenly, they weren't the heroes who escaped the toxic person. They were the cowards who abandoned someone going through transformation. Suddenly, they weren't the wise ones who saw through you. They were the blind ones who couldn't recognize greatness when it was standing right in front of them, raw and unpolished and begging for a chance to be seen. So yes, you let them win. You let them have their little victory lap. You let them celebrate. You let them think they got away with it. 'Cause you knew something they didn't. The only thing more satisfying than immediate revenge is patient vindication. Let's go deeper into the architecture of this 5-year masterpiece you've been building, because this wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't you hiding or running away scared. This was calculated. This was chess while they were playing checkers. This was you understanding that the most powerful weapon in psychological warfare isn't the loudest voice. It's the most strategic silence. You disappeared, not because you had nothing to say, but because you had everything to prove. And you knew that words would never carry the weight that transformation would. You could have spent 5 years arguing, defending, explaining, trying to make them understand, but you didn't. You spent 5 years becoming undeniable instead, because explanations fade, results echo forever. Explanations fade, results echo forever. You let them construct an entire identity around being the person who got away from you. You let them build their confidence on the foundation of your absence. You let them tell the story of how they escaped, how they survived, how they're so much better now, and the whole time you were watching. Not obsessively, not desperately, but with the quiet awareness of a predator who knows exactly where the prey is at all times without needing to chase. You were the ghost in their peripheral vision, the thought that interrupted their celebrations, the name that made them scroll just a little bit faster when it appeared somewhere. They thought you were gone, but you were everywhere. In every moment of doubt they had about their new relationships, in every comparison they made without realizing they were making it, in every quiet moment when they wondered if they made the right choice. You didn't need to be physically present to occupy space in their consciousness. Your absence was louder than your presence ever was. And that was the first layer of the trap. Because by letting them think they won, you gave them permission to let their guard down. You gave them permission to stop watching their back. You gave them permission to believe the war was over. And that's when you started building the empire they're about to see. 5 years is long enough for people to forget the details of why they cut you off. 5 years is long enough for their narrative to get fuzzy, for the facts to blur into feelings, for the truth to get replaced by whatever story made them feel better about themselves. 5 years is long enough for them to stop being vigilant, to stop checking on you, to stop preparing for your return. They thought 5 years meant forever. They thought 5 years meant you'd moved on to a completely different life, where they weren't even a memory. But here's what they didn't account for. Some people don't move on. Some people move through the pain, through the lessons, through the transformation, through the fire, until they emerge on the other side as something completely new. You didn't spend 5 years trying to forget them. You spent 5 years making sure you'd never forget what they taught you about human nature, about loyalty, about the masks people wear, about the difference between who someone pretends to be and who they reveal themselves to be when it costs them nothing to tell the truth. You studied every person who abandoned you like they were case studies. You examined every friend who went silent, every ally who switched sides, every person who smiled in your face while sharpening knives behind your back. And you didn't do this out of bitterness. You did this out of necessity, because once you understand the patterns, once you see the blueprint of betrayal, once you decode the language of manipulation, you become immune to it, not just from them, but from everyone. You built an internal detection system so sophisticated that you can smell dishonesty 3 conversations before it reveals itself. You developed an intuition so sharp that you know someone's true intentions before they fully form the thought themselves. You became a walking lie detector, a human bullshit scanner, a person who can read energy like a first language. And all of this happened in silence, in solitude, in those 5 years when they thought you were defeated. They thought you were licking your wounds. You were cataloging theirs. They thought you were hiding. You were studying. They thought you were broken. You were being rebuilt by something far stronger than their validation ever was. Here's the part that's going to hurt them the most when they finally figure it out. You didn't need 5 years to heal from them. You needed 5 years to make sure that when you came back as someone they could never hurt again. That's the difference between revenge and evolution. Revenge is reactive, immediate, emotional. Evolution is patient, calculated, permanent. You didn't want to hurt them back. You wanted to become someone they couldn't hurt at all. You wanted to reach a level of existence where their opinions, their judgments, their gossip, their little games became completely irrelevant. Not because you rose above it in some spiritual forgive and forget way, but because you evolved beyond it. You became a different species, and now when they look at you, they're not seeing the person they used to know. They're seeing something that doesn't even register in their understanding of reality. They're seeing someone who operates on frequencies they can't tune into, who speaks languages they never learned, who moves through life with a confidence that isn't arrogance but simply the natural result of knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it anymore. There's a moment happening right now, in real time, in their lives, a moment where it's all starting to click, where the pieces are starting to fall into place, where they're beginning to realize that something is very, very wrong with their victory story. It started small, didn't it? A mutual friend mentioned seeing you somewhere, looking different, not broken, not struggling, different, put together, focused, glowing with something that doesn't come from external validation, but from internal revolution. Then someone else brought you up in a completely unrelated context, talking about something you accomplished, something you built, something you became. And suddenly, your name wasn't attached to the old stories anymore. It was attached to new ones, better ones, ones that didn't include them at all. That's when the first crack appeared in their narrative. Because if you're thriving, if you're successful, if you're happy, then what was the point of cutting you off? What exactly did they save themselves from? Then they made the mistake we both knew they would make. They looked, they checked, they scrolled, and what they found shattered the comfortable story they'd been telling themselves. They found someone who didn't look defeated. They found someone who didn't look angry. They found someone who looked free. genuinely, authentically, terrifyingly free. Free from needing them, free from needing anyone, free from the validation they thought was essential to your survival. And that freedom, that's what's keeping them up at night now. Because people can handle you being sad without them. They can handle you struggling. They can even handle you being angry. But they cannot handle you being better. They cannot handle you thriving. They cannot handle you looking like the best decision you ever made was letting them walk away. That's the moment when their victory starts tasting like ash in their mouths. That's the moment when they start questioning everything. That's the moment when your 5-year plan starts revealing itself, and they realize they've been playing a game where you've been 10 moves ahead the entire time. Now they're watching more carefully. Now they're paying attention. Now they're asking questions they don't really want the answers to. How did they do that? When did that happen? Who are these new people in their life? What have they been doing for 5 years? And every answer they get makes them more uncomfortable, because none of it fits the story they needed to believe. You were supposed to be stuck. You were supposed to be the cautionary tale. You were supposed to be the person they could point to and say, see what happens when you don't listen to us, when you don't follow our advice, when you go your own way. But instead, you became the evidence that their way wasn't the only way, that their truth wasn't the universal truth, that maybe, just maybe, they were wrong about you. And being wrong about you means being wrong about themselves. It means questioning every decision they made. It means wondering if the life they built while you were gone is actually the life they wanted, or just the life that felt safe because you weren't in it, challenging them anymore. Here's what's happening in their group chats, in their private conversations, in those late-night talks when defenses come down. Your name is coming up more and more. Not with anger, with something worse, with curiosity, with concern, with that creeping feeling that they made a massive mistake. Someone will say they saw something you posted, something you said, something you did, and there will be silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any words. The kind of silence that says we all feel it, but we're afraid to admit it because admitting it means confronting something we're not ready to face. They'll laugh it off, they'll make a joke, they'll dismiss it. But when they're alone, when they're lying in bed at night, when they're stuck in traffic, when they have those unguarded moments where the truth sneaks past their defenses, they're thinking about you. They're wondering. They're calculating. They're realizing that the person they wrote off might have just written the most incredible comeback story they'll ever witness, and they're not in it. The beautiful irony is that you're not even trying to prove anything to them anymore. You're not posting for their attention. You're not living for their validation. You're not making moves to make them regret anything. You're simply existing at a level that makes their old judgments look ridiculous. You're simply being yourself, fully, unapologetically, without the weight of their expectations or their limitation. And that authentic existence is more threatening to them than any revenge plot could ever be. Because revenge would give them permission to be victims again. Revenge would let them say, see, we were right to cut them off. Look how bitter they are. But success, happiness, peace, there's no defense against that. There's no narrative they can spin that makes them look good when you're clearly doing better without them than you ever did with them. That's the checkmate. That's the moment when 5 years of silence becomes the loudest statement you've ever made. That's when letting them win becomes the ultimate victory. Let's talk about what you actually built during those 5 years, because this is where the strategy becomes art. You didn't just improve yourself, you restructured your entire existence from the foundation up. You didn't just heal wounds, you redesigned your mental architecture so that those same wounds could never be inflicted again. You didn't just move on, you moved into an entirely different dimension of being. While they were having surface-level conversations and maintaining surface-level relationships and living surface-level lives, you were going deep into philosophy, into psychology, into understanding human behavior at a level that makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You learned how people work, why they lie, what they fear, what makes them loyal. You became a student of human nature, while they remained actors in a script they didn't even know they were following. You built skills they didn't know you were building. You developed talents they didn't know existed. You created income streams they never imagined you could. You formed relationships with people who operate at frequencies they can't even comprehend. You didn't just level up, you changed games entirely. While they were playing the same old social hierarchy games, fighting for the same limited resources, competing for the same shallow victories, you found a completely different playing field where their rules don't apply, where their opinions don't matter, where their presence isn't required or desired. You built an empire in exile. You became royalty in a kingdom they don't even know exists. And the most beautiful part? You did it all without announcing it, without bragging about it, without needing them to witness it to make it real. You became dangerous because your validation doesn't come from external sources anymore. It comes from internal knowing, from walking your path with integrity, from keeping promises to yourself, from becoming the person you always knew you could be if everyone would just get out of your way. The money you made, the body you built, the mind you sharpened, the spirit you strengthened, the network you created, the opportunities you manifested, none of it was about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right, about validating the voice inside you that always said you were capable of more, you were meant for more, you were built for more. They tried to convince you that voice was delusion, that voice was ego, that voice was unrealistic expectation, but that voice was prophecy. And 5 years later, the prophecy has manifested. You're not who they said you were. You're exactly who you always knew you could become. And the gap between their limited perception of you and your actualized reality is so vast that they can't bridge it, they can't make sense of it, they can't reduce it to luck or timing or circumstances. They have to face the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, they were the anchor, they were the limitation, they were the thing holding you back. You know what else you built? Emotional immunity. Not apathy, not coldness, but immunity. The ability to feel everything deeply without letting it control you. So, it begins. Look who just got the letter. The one with no return address, no postmark, no explanation. Just your name written in ink that seems to move when you're not looking directly at it. Just those 7 words that made your blood run backwards. We've been waiting for you to remember. You thought it was a prank at first, didn't you? Some elaborate joke from someone who knows too much about your late-night internet searches, your obsession with old libraries, your dreams about places you've never been. But then you noticed the seal. That symbol you've been doodling since childhood without knowing why. The one that appears in your notebooks, on foggy windows, in the sand when you're not paying attention. They call themselves the Silent Brothers, and according to them, you're not who you think you are. You're not just another face in the crowd, another number in the system, another forgotten soul grinding through existence. No, according to this letter that shouldn't exist, sent by people who shouldn't know you exist, you're something else entirely. You're their lost heir, the missing piece of a puzzle that's been incomplete for decades. But here's the thing that should terrify you. You've never heard of them. Not once. Not in any book, any website, any whispered conversation in the corners of the world where secrets go to hide. The Silent Brothers don't exist in any registry, any historical document, any conspiracy theory forum. They are not even a rumor. They're less than ghosts. They're an absence where something should be. And yet, the moment you read their name, something in your chest responded, didn't it? Like a key turning in a lock you didn't know was there. Like a frequency only you can hear, suddenly broadcasting at full volume. Your hands shook, not with fear, but with recognition. Your body knew something your mind had been trained to forget. They've been watching you, they say. Not in the way that makes you check your windows at night or sweep your devices for bugs. No, they've been watching you through patterns. Through the books you choose without thinking, through the paths you walk when you're lost in thought, through the words you speak when you think no one's listening. They've been reading you like a map to something buried. Every strange coincidence in your life, every moment of inexplicable knowing, every time you felt like you were playing a role in a story written in a language you can't read, that was them. Or rather, that was you responding to signals they've been sending since before you were born. You're not paranoid. You were right all along. Someone has been orchestrating the symphony of your existence. But they're not puppeteers, they claim. They're more like archaeologists, carefully brushing away the years of conditioning, the false memories, the implanted normalcy that's been keeping you dormant. They say you were hidden, not lost, protected, not abandoned. And now that you're old enough, strong enough, or perhaps just desperate enough, they're ready to tell you why. Your blood, they write, carries something that shouldn't exist anymore. Not royal blood in the traditional sense. That's child's play compared to what flows through your veins. You carry the genetic memory of something older, something that predates kingdoms and countries and the very concept of power as the world understands it. You're not descended from kings. You're descended from the people who made kings possible. The Silent Brothers claim to be the last guardians of this bloodline, the final protectors of a truth so dangerous that it had to be scattered, hidden, buried in the genetics of seemingly random people across the world. People like you, living normal lives, feeling abnormal feelings, knowing without knowing that something essential has been kept from them. They tell you there have been signs all your life if only you knew how to read them. The way animals react to you, either with unusual affection or inexplicable fear. The way electronic devices malfunction in your presence when you're emotional. The dreams you have that feel more like memories, full of faces you recognize but have never met. Places you know but have never been. Your parents, they suggest, might not be who you think they are. Or rather, they might not know who they really are either. The bloodline doesn't always run straight. Sometimes it skips generations, lies dormant, waits for the right combination of circumstances to activate. Sometimes it takes trauma to wake it up. Sometimes it takes loss. Sometimes it just takes someone finally telling you the truth. But who are these silent brothers really? According to the letter, they're not a secret society in the way you'd imagine. They don't have meetings in underground chambers or wear robes or perform rituals by candlelight. There's something far more subtle and infinitely more powerful. They're a network of individuals who've learned to exist between the lines of reality, in the spaces most people don't even know are there. They operate through synchronicity, through meaningful coincidences, through the manipulation of probability itself. When you meet exactly the right person at exactly the right moment, when a book falls off a shelf open to exactly the page you needed to read, when you take a wrong turn that leads you exactly where you needed to go, that might be them, or more accurately, that might be you, unconsciously responding to their influence. They claim to have been founded not centuries ago, but millennia ago, by people who understood something about consciousness that modern science is only beginning to glimpse. They discovered that certain bloodlines carry the ability to perceive and manipulate what they call the substrate, the underlying code of reality that exists beneath physical matter, beneath energy, beneath even thought itself. The Silent Brothers have been preserving this knowledge, protecting these bloodlines, waiting for something. And according to the letter, that something is approaching fast. They don't call it the end of the world, because it's not. They call it the revision. A moment when reality itself will become malleable, when the rules that govern existence will become negotiable, and when those who carry the old blood will either save or damn everyone else. But here's where it gets interesting. The letter doesn't ask you to believe them. In fact, it explicitly states that belief is irrelevant. What matters is whether you can do what they claim you can do. They've included a test, a simple set of instructions that should be impossible to follow successfully, unless, of course, you are who they say you are. Go to the place you've been avoiding, the instructions read, the one that calls to you in dreams but repels you in waking. Stand there at the threshold between day and night. Speak the words you've never learned but have always known. Watch what happens to the shadows. Watch what happens to your shadow. You know exactly where they mean, don't you? That place you drive past but never enter, that building, that forest, that intersection that makes your skin crawl and sing at the same time. You've been circling it your whole life, like a satellite orbiting a gravity well it can't escape. And the words, you can almost hear them, can't you? Just beneath the surface of your thoughts, in a language that predates language. The letter continues with a warning. Once you complete this test, there's no going back. Not because they won't let you, but because you won't be able to. Once you see what you really are, once you feel the true weight of your inheritance, the normal world will become unbearable. Not because it's beneath you, but because you'll finally understand what's been done to it, what's been done to everyone, and what you're supposed to do about it. According to the Silent Brothers, history as you know it is a carefully constructed lie, not in the way conspiracy theorists claim, with fake moon landings and hidden cabals. The lies go deeper than that. The very structure of how you perceive time, causality, and identity has been manipulated to keep humanity docile and disconnected from its true potential. They claim there was a time when humans could do things that would seem like magic now, not through technology or tools, but through consciousness itself. People could communicate without words, heal without medicine, travel without moving. But something happened. They call it the severing, that cut humanity off from these abilities, all except for a few bloodlines that retained a dormant connection, a sleeping potential that could be awakened under the right circumstances. The Silent Brothers formed in the aftermath of the severing, not as rulers or controllers, but as preservers. They've been maintaining the knowledge, protecting the bloodlines, and preparing for the moment when the severing could be healed. But they've had to work in absolute secrecy because there are others who benefit from humanity's disconnection, others who've built their power on the foundation of humanity's limitation. These others, the letter doesn't name them directly but refers to them as the architects of absence, have been actively hunting the bloodlines, either to eliminate them or corrupt them. Every mysterious disappearance, every sudden madness, every family line that ends abruptly might be their work. And according to the Silent Brothers, you've survived multiple attempts on your life without even knowing it. What exactly is this inheritance they claim you carry? It's not money or property or even knowledge in the traditional sense. It's something they call the sight. The ability to perceive the true nature of reality, to see the connections between all things, to understand the language that existence speaks to itself. But more than that, it's the ability to speak back. People with the sight, they claim, can influence probability, can nudge reality in subtle ways, can make the unlikely become inevitable. It's not about breaking the laws of physics. It's about understanding that the laws of physics are more like suggestions and that consciousness has a vote in how they're applied. Every moment of uncanny luck in your life, every impossible coincidence, every time you've thought something into existence, that was your inheritance trying to express itself. But there's a cost. The sight comes with the burden of seeing too much. You'll see the pain behind every smile, the fear behind every boast, the lie behind every truth. You'll see the threads that connect all living things, which means you'll feel every cut, every wound, every severing as if it were happening to you. You'll understand why the Silent Brothers chose silence, because once you can hear everything, saying anything becomes almost impossible. The letter describes others like you, other lost heirs who've been found and awakened. Some became healers, able to repair not just bodies but the very fabric of broken lives. Some became visionaries, able to see the patterns that shape the future and guide others away from catastrophe. Some became warriors, fighting battles in dimensions most people don't know exist. And some, the letter admits, couldn't handle the weight of it and chose to return to sleeping, though they were never quite the same. But why now? Why are the Silent Brothers breaking their silence, reaching out to lost heirs like you after all this time? The letter speaks of an acceleration, a quickening, a convergence of patterns that suggests something massive is about to shift. They don't call it apocalypse because that word has been corrupted to mean ending. They call it the opening, a moment when the barriers between what is and what could be become permeable. During the opening, they claim, the abilities of those with the sight will be amplified beyond measure. The subtle influence you've always had on reality will become a roar. The quiet knowing will become undeniable certainty. The connection you felt to something greater will become a direct line to the source code of existence itself. But so too will the abilities of those who oppose the awakening, those who profit from humanity's sleep. The Silent Brothers need you, and others like you, to be ready, not to fight in any traditional sense, but to hold space for a new possibility, to be lighthouse keepers in a storm that will test the very foundations of what people believe is real, to be anchors for those who will be swept away by the revelation that everything they thought they knew was just one channel on an infinite dial of possible reality. They're not asking you to save the world. They're asking you to help the world save itself by remembering what it really is. But first, you have to remember what you really are. And that process, they warn, might destroy everything you think you know about yourself. The letter presents you with 3 choices, though it admits that for someone like you, there's really only one. The first choice is to ignore everything, burn the letter, pretend it never arrived. They won't contact you again, won't force anything upon you. You can live out your life in the comfortable prison of normal reality, though they warn that the knowing has already begun and can't be completely undone. The second choice is to investigate but not commit, to research, to question, to dip your toe into the waters of possibility without diving in. They'll provide you with more information, connect you with others who are questioning, let you observe without participating, but they warn that half awakening is its own kind of torture. To see the door but not walk through it, to know the truth but not embody it. The third choice is full acceptance, to take the test, to meet with the Silent Brothers, to begin the process of remembering and reclaiming your inheritance. This means leaving behind not necessarily your life, but your attachment to the illusion of it. It means accepting that you've been playing a character in someone else's story and deciding to write your own. It means becoming what you've always been, but were convinced you couldn't be. But here's the twist they save for the end. The choice has already been made, not by them, not even by you, but by the part of you that exists outside time, that knew this moment would come and has been preparing for it your whole life. Every decision you've made, every path you've taken has been leading you here. The only question is whether you'll consciously align with what your deeper self has already chosen. The letter includes something else, something that makes your hands shake as you read it. A series of seemingly random words and phrases that trigger something deep in your memory. Not memories of learning them, but memories of knowing them, as if they've always been there, waiting to be activated. They call these recognition codes, and they say every lost heir has their own unique set. When you read them, images flash through your mind, a room you've never been in but know every detail of, a symbol that makes your heart race with recognition, a sensation of flying without wings, of breathing without air, of existing in multiple places at once. These aren't fantasies, the letter insists. They're memories of what you could do before the severing, before you were convinced you were small and powerless and alone. The codes are also a test of authenticity. Only true heirs will have a visceral, undeniable reaction to their specific codes. Others might find them interesting or mysterious, but they won't feel the clicking of tumblers in a lock, the sudden expansion of possibility, the overwhelming sense of coming home to a self you didn't know you'd lost. If you're reading this and feeling nothing, then this story isn't for you. But if you're reading this and feeling everything, then you know what comes next. The Silent Brothers mention that speaking these codes aloud in certain locations will open doors. Not physical doors, though sometimes those too, but doors of perception, doors of possibility, doors between what is and what could be. They're keys to hidden libraries, to secret meetings, to knowledge that's been kept out of public reach for millennia. But more than that, They're keys to the locked rooms in your own consciousness. You're not alone, the letter emphasizes. All over the world, others like you are receiving similar messages. Not identical, each heir's letter is unique to their pattern, their codes, their specific inheritance, but all pointing toward the same revelation. The Silent Brothers have been mapping the bloodlines for generations, waiting for the right moment to activate the network, and that moment is now. They describe a web of connections that will become visible once you begin the awakening process. You'll start recognizing others like you, not by any physical characteristic, but by a quality of presence, a particular way they disturb the air around them. You'll find yourself in the right place at the right time to meet them, as if reality itself is conspiring to bring the heirs together. Some of these connections will feel ancient, like reuniting with family you've known for lifetimes. Others will feel electric, dangerous, like mixing chemicals that could either create medicine or explosives. The Silent Brothers warn that not all heirs will choose the same path. Some will embrace their inheritance, some will fight it, and some will try to use it for purposes that weren't intended. There's mention of gathering points, locations around the world where the fabric of reality is thinner, where heirs can meet and train and remember together. These aren't marked on any map, but you'll know them when you're near them. Your body will respond, your inheritance will sing, and you'll be drawn like iron filings to a magnet. The letter includes hints about one near you, described in terms of feeling rather than geography. Feeling. But who are these architects of absence the Silent Brothers mention? The letter finally provides more detail, though shrouded in metaphor and careful language. They're described not as a competing organization, but as a force, a tendency toward limitation and control that has infected human consciousness like a virus. They work through systems rather than individuals, through beliefs rather than commands. Every voice that's ever told you to be smaller, quieter, less than you are, that's their influence. Every system designed to make you dependent rather than powerful, that's their architecture. Every time you've been convinced that magic isn't real, that consciousness is just a byproduct of brain chemistry, that you're alone in a cold, mechanical universe, that's their programming taking hold. They don't need secret meetings or hidden symbols because they operate in plain sight through the very structures of modern life. The education that teaches memorization over intuition, the medicine that treats symptoms over causes, the economy that values accumulation over connection, all of these are their tools, whether the people running them know it or not. The architects fear the awakening of the heirs because it threatens their entire framework. If people remember what they really are, if they reconnect with their true inheritance, then the systems of control collapse, not through revolution, but through irrelevance. Why would anyone choose limitation once they remember limitlessness? Why would anyone accept powerlessness once they feel their true power?